Hi everyone, my name is Ammika and I'm a 21-year-old student from the United Kingdom. I'm currently a university student at Cambridge University, and I'm also the founder of a campaign called Prepirior즈, which is fighting to end period poverty in the UK. So today I'm going to be talking a bit about youth activism and why I believe that young people have the power to make real political change. It's based on my own experiences successfully persuading the British government to provide free menstrual products in all schools and colleges in England. This was a response to the issue of period poverty in the UK, which is when girls can't afford pads, tampons due to financial inaccessibility or other issues that may prevent them from going to school or engaging in their normal daily lives when they're menstruating. I'm really fortunate that I've never suffered from that myself personally, but at the age of 17 I read an article in the news which was talking about girls having to either miss school for the whole period of which they're on their period, or they were going to school and using toilet paper, newspaper, old socks or clothes, whatever they could find in order to get an education. And that made me really upset and quite angry. I thought that when this was in the news, the British government would take a stand and provide them for free in order to end period poverty, but nobody seemed to be coming up with any solutions or trying to make them happen. And that's why I started my campaign. So it started as a petition online. I called it Prepiorior즈, and the idea was that the government should provide them free in all school bathrooms for anyone who needs them. It took a lot of work. It took about 3 years, but eventually it was successful. At first I started the campaign and the petition, and I was fighting and trying really hard to make the petition signatures go up and to persuade people to care about the issue, and that was a real challenge, trying to reach as many people as possible. But that's where social media was really, really important. I was posting about it on my social media channels, and immediately people felt as passionate as I did about the issue of period poverty, and they wanted to help. So they got in touch with me, and thousands of people were signing the petition. It ended up getting over 250,000 signatures, which was incredible. And what was sad is that the government still weren't doing anything. They weren't taking a stand and implementing any kind of policy to end this really sad issue of period poverty in the UK. So I decided to organise a protest in London in December 2017. Me and a few friends of mine, we got together and we organised this protest. We told people that we would have speeches and songs and dances. We asked everyone to wear red, and I was really excited for it, but really nervous as well. It was a huge job to try and organise that, and I was really worried that nobody would come because it was around Christmas time and it was just difficult to try and guarantee that people would be there. But I'm so happy to say that in the end over 2,000 people came. We stood right outside Downing Street where our Prime Minister lives, and we were shouting about tampons and periods, and it was a real celebration of periods, and it made me realise that we have lived for so long under this culture of shame and taboo around periods, and the protest really proved that people were just bored of that. We were just sick and tired of it, and we wanted to talk about our periods, and we wanted to do something to change that culture of secrecy and shame. And after the protest, unfortunately the government still weren't responding to my calls for change. Despite all the media coverage and everyone getting involved on the day, a response just didn't come. So I then decided to team up with some other campaigners and activists in the UK and create Prepiorior즈 as an organisation. It turned into a company with a board of directors, and we started working with a legal team. So we thought of alternative routes to try and persuade the government, and a legal challenge seemed like something that could potentially work. In the UK we have a law called the Equality Act, which says that all children should have equal access to education. But unfortunately period poverty meant that 1 in 10 girls were unable to afford period products and couldn't go to school when they were on their periods. So that clearly was a disjuncture, because if 1 in 10 girls couldn't go to school, that's clear evidence of gender inequality. and the legal challenge was really great, and a lot of people were supporting it, but still it didn't really have a huge impact. It had a huge impact in kind of free periods, but it didn't persuade the government. So we carried on campaigning. I was really fortunate in the year of 2018 to work on internationalising the campaign and trying to raise awareness of period poverty on a global scale. Period poverty is not something that just happens in the UK, so I was talking about it in different countries such as Johannesburg, Zambia. I was fortunate enough to go to New York and Washington DC and talk to a lot of influential people who were interested in getting involved in the campaign and talking about period poverty as well as the period taboo. And then finally in 2019, in the month of March, the government decided to take action, and that was an incredible thing. So I was kind of at home with my family, and I saw a notification on my phone that the government was going to implement this policy of providing free menstrual products in all schools and colleges in England, which was amazing. And the scheme actually started at the beginning of 2020, and the way that it works is that it's an opt-in scheme, which means that schools and colleges are each given a certain amount of funding to try and to order in as many products as they need for their students. And so right now we're working with schools to try and make sure that the education is also there. One thing that I really realised with the campaign is that one reason why it took almost 3 years of campaigning to actually make the change happen was because of this culture of secrecy and shame and stigma around periods, and that was something that I've always worked to really change. And the main way that any of us can make a difference is by talking about periods. I think for so long I've been really embarrassed of my period, and I've kind of whispered when the topic comes up in conversation. Some of my friends have never even spoken to their friends or family about periods, and so that's something that I think needs to end. I think the next generation needs to be brought up with the sense that they can talk about them openly, because at the end of the day it's a normal, natural, bodily, biological process that half the world's population are going through. So why shouldn't we talk about them in the way that we talk about any other topic? And the other thing that I've tried to kind of reflect through the success of free periods is the idea that individuals really can make a difference. At the time I was 17 years old. I'd never been involved in any kind of activism or campaigning in my life, and I definitely made a lot of mistakes and I didn't do things perfectly, but my kind of passion and determination meant that a lot of people came and helped, and it kind of built this huge community of passionate activists, and as a collective we were obviously persuasive in trying to changing government policy. And so that's something I would say to any young person, particularly. As a young person, you really do have the power to make change. I think we've been told and taught that we have to accept things as they are, we have to accept the status quo, but actually if you recognise an injustice or an issue in society, you do have the power to make a change and change people's lives. And the most difficult thing is just deciding to be that person and deciding to make a difference and taking that first step. So if you're somebody watching this who has an idea for a campaign or sees a problem with society that you want to change, I would definitely encourage you to make that change happen, to do something about it today. So thank you so much for listening to my talk. So the first one is, what policies are there that actually help low-income girls, both in the UK and abroad? So in the UK, as I said, this policy has been implemented in all schools and colleges to enable people to afford menstrual products, which is great. I know that in a lot of other countries like Canada, some states in India, in Kenya, the government has responded to campaigners who have said that period poverty is an issue and they are implementing different solutions. So one thing I would say is that the British government has set a precedent and has shown that it's possible to provide the products, and the period products should be seen as a essential item like toilet paper provided for free in public spaces. So other governments should do the same and should also provide the products that their students need in order to enable them to go to school and fulfill their full potential in education. I wonder if there are any other social problems that you're interested in, and yes, there definitely are. I think my campaigning interests started around period poverty, but it's definitely made me learn a lot more about other social issues. Period poverty kind of sits in the middle of lots of issues around feminism and equality and environmentalism too. These are all things that I'm really interested in, and I've actually written a book that's coming out in January of 2021. It's called Make It Happen, and it's available for pre-order now. It's a very practical guide for anyone who wants to be a campaigner or an activist or make change in their community. It's based on my own experiences with free periods, of course, but it's also featuring a global array of activists who have made different changes in the world, and a lot of people that I really admire. So please check that out if you want to, and if you're interested in also campaigning against social issues and making a change in your community, either on a small or large scale, I think it would be a really useful guide in trying to get in how to get started and how to make change happen. And the third question is, what do you think is the most important thing in giving positive influence? I think passion is the kind of most important thing. If you want to make a change, if you want to have a positive influence on people's lives, you have to choose an issue that genuinely makes you so angry and upset you have to make a change. I think everyone has that one thing when they look around them in society. There's one injustice that feels so wrong, and I think it's really important that we all try and do what we can. So you have to be passionate, you have to be able to have the self-confidence and the determination to do something. And I think the hardest part, as I said, is definitely that decision to get started. For me, when I started out, I didn't know where it would take me. I didn't realise I'd still be doing it 4 years later. But it was definitely the best decision I made, and eventually changing the British government policy against period poverty made me realise that individuals really can make a difference, no matter who you are, where you live, how old you are, what you look like, where you come from. Everyone is entitled to make a change in their communities, or on a global or national scale. So believing in yourself and believing that you have power as an individual is a really empowering and amazing feeling. So I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for listening to me, and thank you for having me. Keep on fighting, and thank you for having me in this expo, because it's a great honour, and I hope you all feel empowered to make change. Thank you.